So my next question is asking for me to solve for a system of equations. So 3x plus 4y is equal to negative 23, and 2y minus x is equal to negative 19. So first thing I do is always number my equations to keep track of the original equations and manipulate them accordingly so that I can cancel out variables when they are equal and opposite in magnitude. So what I want to do here is multiply the equation 2 by 3 so I can get a negative 3x to cancel out with the 3x in equation 1, so I can solve for the value of the y variable and plug that in and therefore get the x variable. So that is 6y minus 3x is equal to negative 57. And then I'm just going to rewrite equation 1 as is, but make sure to switch these two variables in their location. So it's 4y plus 3x, so I can more easily cancel, is equal to negative 23. And so I get 10y, cancel these two because these negative 3x and positive 3x cancel, is equal to, I'm going to do, here it is 60. And so, therefore, I'm just checking my math really quickly. Nope, it seems to be 80. So so the answer is negative 80 here, so make sure to do this correctly. Don't make a mistake in terms of your addition like I did. And so I'm going to divide both sides by 10, and so y is equal to negative 8. And so obviously the only answer choice where y is equal to negative 8 is answer choice B, but I'm going to plug that back into equation 2 and to check if the x value is in fact number 3. And so it's going to be 2 times negative 8 minus x is equal to negative 19, so negative 16 minus x is equal to negative 19. Everything is a negative sign, so I can multiply both sides by negative 1 to make everything positive. So x is equal to 19 minus 16, because if I subtract 16 from both sides, I can move it to the other side and isolate the x, and so x is equal to 3. And so it seems like the answer to your system is 3 comma negative 8, and therefore your answer choice for number 9 is B. So moving on to number 10, it's asking for the function g defined as ax squared plus 24, where a is a constant and g of 4 is 8. What is the value of g of negative 4? So basically what we have to first do is find the value of a, so we can find the true value of g of x, the function g of x, so we can plug in negative 4 as x and solve for the value of g of x when x is negative 4. So basically I'm going to treat whatever's in the parentheses as an x value and whatever's outside of the parentheses as a y value. That's kind of how you read these functions. So what it's going to be is that when x is 4, y is 8 in this case. And so that's going to help us solve for a. So 8 is equal to a times 4 squared plus 24. So 8 is equal to 16a plus 24. It seems like I could divide everything by 8 here. So when you divide the entire equation by 8, it's 1 is equal to 2a plus 3. So I'm going to subtract both I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So minus 3 plus. So negative 2 is equal to 2a. So a is going to be equal to negative 1. Now notice how negative 1 is one of the answer choices. So don't let that fool you because you're not solving for a. Though you need a to find out g of negative 4, don't just stop here and see c and choose that as your answer. It's a very common mistake on the SAT. So a is negative 1. So that means that g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 24. So now I can plug in negative 4 as an x value and solve for g of x and look for that in my answer choices. So when I do negative 4 squared plus 24, it's going to be negative 16 plus 24. And so that's going to give me g of x when, or g of negative 4 is going to be equal to 8. So that seems to match to my answer choice A. So therefore, the answer for number 10 is A. So your next question, number 11, gives you another system of equations where B represents the price per pound of beef and C represents the price per pound of chicken. And it's asking you what was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken. So it's basically going to ask you for the value of the of B and C when B and C are equal to each other. So that means I can set B and C equal to each other and solve for x, and then plug back in x to the entire equation and solve for the value of the equation. So 2.35 when you equate B and C plus 0.25x is equal to 1.75 plus 0.40x. That's when you're setting these two values equal to each other. First thing, I don't like the decimal places. I don't like working decimal places. I feel a lot more comfortable with whole numbers. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 100. So that gives me 235 plus 25x is equal to 175 plus 40x. And it seems like I can divide everything by 5. So I'm going to divide all values. Actually, I'm going to group the values together and then divide them by 5. So 235, I'm going to subtract 175 by both sides. So 235 minus 175 is equal to 40x minus 25x if I subtract 25x from both sides. And so this is going to give me 40 minus 25, just to double check my arithmetic, is going to give me 15. And to double check my arithmetic here, 175, so that's going to give me 60. So it's going to be 60 is equal to 15x. So if I divide both sides by 15 here, I'm going to get x is equal to 4, because 60 divided by 15 is 4. And so 4 is obviously not an answer choice, but I'm going to plug it into one of the answer choices, one of the equations, and to see what the value of B would be. And because B is equal to C in this scenario, that would be the value of the price per pound of chicken as well. I'm going to plug it into the equation solving for B, because that just seems like an easier equation to work with arithmetically. So 2.35 plus 1/4 times 4, this both cancels and you basically get a 1, so 2.35 plus 1 is equal to B, and that's equal to 3.35. And so this seems to match to my answer choice D. So sure enough, your answer choice D is your correct answer. So for your next question, number 12, it says that a line in the xy plane passes through the origin. So I'm going to draw a line here, and it's in the xy plane and passes through the origin, and it has a slope of 1/7. So here it is. Here's a line passing through the origin, and it has a slope of 1/7. And which of the following points lie on the line is the question. So obviously, firstly I'm going to write an equation for this line. So when you look at the format y equals mx plus b, m stands for your slope and b stands for your y-intercept. Because it passes through the origin, your y-intercept is 0, so I don't have to write a b, and it tells you that your slope is m. So your equation for this line is y equals 1/7 x. And so I can plug in each of the points that they give you as answer choices and check if they fall on the line. But because A is immediately ruled out, because 0,7 is here, and because your y-intercept is the origin, obviously that can't lie on the line. So let's try your next point, 1/7. So I'm going to write all of them down here and solve to see if they fall on the line. So using your first point, so if I'm going to plug in 7, or I'm going to plug in your x value. So 1/7 times 1, does that equal 7? No, it equals 1/7. So it does not equal 7, so this B cannot be your correct answer. And so I'm going to plug in your x value to the next one. So 1/7 times 7 here, that's going to, is that equal to 7? No, it's equal to 1, so therefore C cannot be your answer. So let's really, really hope that D works. So you have 1/7 times 14. When you cancel, that is equal to 2, so D is your correct answer because 14, 2 does fall on your line y is equal to 1/7 x. So the next question, 13, is if x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to 1 over 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 3? And the main key is that we have to simplify this and see when we can match it to one of the choices that are given. To us. So firstly, we have to remove this, kind of simplify this denominator here, and that's going to require us multiplying both of these fractions by a common denominator, to create a common denominator, to kind of ultimately flip it. So what we'll do is take this as if it were its own kind of group of factors, and multiply it by a common denominator. So multiply it by x plus 3 times x plus 2 times x plus 3 times x plus 2, because ultimately that is 1, right? And multiply that by 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 3. And so you're going to kind of multiply this entire factor by this and multiply this by this. And so ultimately you're going to, when you multiply it by this, you cancel out the x plus 2's and you get x plus 3 over x plus 3 times x plus 2 plus, and then because x plus 3 canceled out, you get x plus 2 over x plus 3 times x plus 2. So here you can basically simplify this to x plus 3 plus x plus 2 over x plus 3, x plus 2. Multiply by x plus 2. So I'm going to simplify this numerator here, and that's going to give me 2x plus 5 if I add the x's and add the whole numbers here. And I'm going to expand out this these two parentheses and multiply them together, so it's going to give me x squared plus 5x plus 6. So let me go through step by step through how I did that particular multiplication. So firstly, I multiply this factor. Each factor has to be multiplied by every other factor in the other parentheses. So this must be multiplied by this, and this must be multiplied by this. So you can see that the x must be multiplied by the x, so that gives me x squared. The x must be multiplied by the 2, so that gives me 2x. Then 3 must be multiplied by both the x and the 2, so that gives me 3x, and then when it's multiplied by 2, it gives me the 6. So when I multiply this, add these two factors here, I get x squared plus 5x plus 6, which is exactly what I found here. But don't be fooled, because you have to remember that this entire, all this work was done only in the denominator of the original thing we were given. So the actual, where we're currently at right now is 1 over 2x plus 5 over x squared plus 5x plus 6, as if this is kind of like its own variable or its own kind of group by itself. And so the way to remove this is to flip it. That's kind of how I remember it. So whenever you have a complicated sort of group or factor or a fraction in the denominator underneath a 1, then you flip it to remove the 1. And so mathematically that would basically just mean multiplying it by its reciprocal. And so when you flip it and you kind of simplify it, removing the 1, you get x squared plus 5x plus 6 over 2x plus 5. And that is going to be your answer choice B. Don't be fooled by answer choice A. So the next question, number 14, is if 3x minus y is equal to 12, then what is the value of 8 to the x power over 2 to the y power? So the first thing to note is that we have to kind of solve for a system of equations, but this is a slightly different system of equations. So keep in mind that this is kind of going to be one of your equations, and once we simplify this group of exponents, then we can plug that back into here and figure out what the other variable would be. So the first thing to do is to note that 8 is equal to 2 to the third power. That's kind of what you have to pick up on immediately. And so what that tells you is that this factor, 8x over 2y, is equal to 2 to the 3x power over 2y. And so basically, that tells you that you can simplify this into 2 over 3x minus y. Why? Because any exponent that is in the denominator can be moved to the numerator when you add like a negative sign in front of it. So, for example, 1 over 2 is equal to 2 to the negative 1 power. And that's kind of applied to this principle here. So, now, we look at this other equation that we were given, and it tells us that 3x minus y is equal to 12. So this tells us that 2 to 3x minus y is equal to 2 to the 12th power. And 2 to the 12th power is ultimately equal to 8x over 2y. So that is your answer choice, A. So 14's answer is A.